As I mentioned in the beginning, Mohsen Mahdawi was a pro-Palestinian activist who was kidnapped from Columbia University. We have seen this all over the country, especially from Columbia University, also at Tufts University with Rumsaya Ozturk. Mahmoud Khalil is probably the most prominent fixture in this legal battle because he is a naturalized U.S. citizen. His wife is a U.S. citizen. His child is a natural born U.S. citizen. And these folks are being black bagged, kidnapped, and disappeared, all for the crime of criticizing Israel. Up until this point, there really has not been much justice served to these young people. And that changed with the release of Mohsen Mahdawi. We are going to listen to this article from NPR that details the successful and the justified and the complete, and like his detainment was entirely unwarranted to begin with.
Columbia University student Mohsen Mahdawi, a lawful permanent resident detained over his pro-Palestinian activism, is free. A federal judge in Vermont released him yesterday with conditions as his case continues. Outside the court, Mahdawi was greeted by a crowd of supporters.
I am saying it clear and loud. Yes. To President Trump and his cabinet. Yes. I am not afraid of you.
He is one of multiple international students involved in advocacy to end the war in Gaza who've been detained and are at risk of deportation under the Trump administration. In his opinion, the judge, Jeffrey W. Crawford, wrote, quote, "Legal residents not charged with crimes or misconduct are being arrested and threatened with deportation for stating their views on the political issues of the day."
The Trump administration has admitted multiple times that Mahmoud Khalil has not been charged of a crime. That Mohsen Mahdawi has not been charged with the crime because it is not a crime to protest genocide. It is not illegal to be critical of Israel. When the Trump administration does this, when little Marco Rubio steps up on the box that's behind his podium and makes announcements like this, these are entirely political motivated actions. These are done specifically to silence any pro-Palestinian activism. As a result of this, as a result of the details of these cases, any judge who is credible, who has integrity, who's got a pair of fucking balls, who has a spine, is going to deem these people not guilty because not only are they not being charged with the crime, the Trump administration is not providing any evidence of these people being terrorists, which is always the conflation that is made. In the case of Mahmoud Khalil, the Trump administration believed him to be a Hamas sympathizer or to be a member of Hamas, even though he was constantly back and forth in communication with Columbia University and the student protesters. If there was any evidence of him being related to Hamas, surely Columbia University would have been able to build a case. But that's not what's going on here. They are doing this because Donald Trump got hundreds of millions of dollars from the Israel lobby, from Miriam Adelson. There are countless House of Representatives. The majority of House of Representatives get money through AIPAC. They are doing this because they are cucked to Israel and they are cucked to Benjamin Netanyahu.
And this moment to the Red Scare and McCarthy eras. A Department of Homeland Security spokesperson said in statements to the press that no lawsuit or judge would stop the administration from, quote, restoring the rule of law to our immigration system. Joining me now is one of Mahdawi's lawyers, Luna Druby. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So, our listeners heard from your client, Mohsen Mahdawi, from prison just a couple days ago, and now he's been released. Were you surprised that it happened?
Of course, I was surprised that it was happened, but it was absolutely the right thing to do. The judge understood that. He heard what Mohsen had to say. He read the law and he did the right thing.
What did he say to you when he was released?
Mohsen is a very calm presence. And so, he just looked at me and he said, "Thank you." And he nodded and he gave me a big hug. And and that was it. I think he's still processing what happened, but I think I saw a huge sense of relief on his face.
But this case is not over. What were the conditions of his release?
He set only a few conditions, that he remain in Vermont, which is his home anyway, that he be allowed to travel to New York City to attend Columbia, which is his goal anyway, and that, any other travel would have to get approved by the court, and that he has to attend hearings in the case.
What happens next? I know
It is crazy that they effectively put him on probation for not committing a crime. These are literally the same conditions that actual criminals get. Even like nonviolent criminals, like you get busted with like a little bit of weed in a state where it's not legal, and the judge is like, you're not allowed to go anywhere. You can't leave the state. You can only go to and from work. Like, this is crazy. This is still crazy. Yeah, the judge did the right thing, but this judge is still a little bit off the mark on it. What are the reasons for these conditions? There's no crime that he committed. There was no evidence presented to the judge that this guy is a threat. Why is he not allowed to have the same rights that he had before this case began?
the federal court case where you've petitioned the court saying that your client's First Amendment right to free speech has been violated and his right to due process has been violated. But there's also an immigration case around his deportation.
The immigration case proceeds. This case has nothing to do with that immigration proceeding. So we proceed. There will be continued litigation in the federal case, which we hope to succeed on as well, to frame this entire engagement in what happened to Mr. Mahdawi as unconstitutional.
Now, the government is invoking this rarely used Immigration Act, saying that Mohsen Mahdawi's presence in the U.S. would have adverse consequences on U.S. foreign policy. In court, they've said that the protests he led stoked anti-Semitism, that his presence would undermine Middle East peace efforts, but he hasn't been charged with a crime. What's at stake in this case?
What's at stake is free speech. Mr. Mahdawi did nothing but advocate on behalf of his people. He was born in a refugee camp in Palestine, came here to study peace and to advocate peace, but called for the recognition of Palestinian human rights. One of the bedrocks of this country is supposed to be the freedom to speak up. And if courts don't see that, or if we can't uphold the Constitution in this way, then we all need to take a deep, hard look at ourselves and our Constitution.
Well, obviously, I agree with his lawyer's take on it. There is a larger sticking point here for me where being critical of Israel and speaking out against the genocide that they're committing in Gaza, it is the moral and the humane thing to do. That kind of gets lost in this argument. I understand that she is just looking at it from the legal perspective of what this case is, but if you can't criticize the genocidal actions of a foreign government, what are we doing? What are we doing? This doesn't even, like, we've lost the plot if this is the case, which it already is, because remember, remember, Israel is currently preventing food from going into Gaza. They are issuing a starvation mandate on 2 million people. There is no food for these people to eat. There is no water for these people to drink. The infrastructure has been decimated, if not entirely destroyed, for the nearly 2 years that this conflict has gone on. These are war crimes. These are genocidal actions. There is no precision in anything that Israel is doing at this point. Forget about them going after Hamas. That lie has been has been debunked multiple times over. They are doing collective punishment because they are a genocidal expansionist state. And the United States, of course, is not only complicit in this, but are just as responsible for it with the influx and the unlimited amount of funding and weapons that Israel gets.
And what do you say to those accusations that he stoked anti Semitism, that his presence would undermine Middle East peace efforts?
I find it laughable because this man only advocates for peace. And so, if unless the compromise to foreign policy is peace, I'm not sure what their claim really is.
Can your client just be rearrested on the same grounds since the Secretary of State is invoking this act?
Not under the Secretary of State's provision. Again, he cannot be rearrested on the basis and the grounds that the government has attempted to in the present case.
Would you say this is a precedent setting case?
Yes, I think it is. And I think the judge saw 130 people wrote declarations attesting to this man's character, who he is, and what he advocates for. And I think that this case speaks to all of our understanding of this country, which is that we have the right to speak and we have the right to advocate on behalf of Palestinian human rights.
Luna Drew.
The precedence of this case is what makes these instances so pressing. Like, these are monumental legal cases that we are living through, both on the grounds of free speech and due process. The Trump administration was hoping to have these gentlemen deported illegally, so that way there was no precedent that could be set. I remember when news came out that Mahmoud Khalil has a legal team that includes 19 people, and conservatives were bitching and moaning and crying about how does this guy have the money for 19 lawyers. Meanwhile, none of these fucking brainless dipshits recognize the severity of this case and how 19 people would be willing to do pro bono work to be on the right side of history. This is more than just deporting. This is more than just the deportation of naturalized citizens. This is the deportation, the unjust and the illegal deportation of naturalized citizens for merely expressing their First Amendment right, their constitutionally given right.
Luna Druby is one of the lawyers for Mohsen Mahdawi, who was released on Wednesday by a federal court in Vermont. Thank you for speaking with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Live from NPR.
My hope for this is that we get a similar string of actions in regards to Mahmoud Khalil. The last time we talked about that case, the judge overseeing his case was basically like, hey, to the prosecution, you got to give me some evidence. The judge, Louisiana-based judge, by the way, was like, I'm more than happy to deport this guy for being critical of Israel, but you have to give me some evidence, because that is how this system works. If you are a naturalized U.S. citizen, if you are a undocumented person, and you are convicted and you are accused of a crime, the judge not only sees your case and assesses the severity of your crime and dictates the punishment, they can also decide if you're worthy or if you're fit for deportation. I say worthy, that's a really fucked up word for me to use. I apologize. You cannot do that with naturalized U.S. citizens or natural-born U.S. citizens. That is why the citizenship hierarchy exists. It is to help dictate the type of punishment that one person can receive. However, through it all, I am very happy to see the correct thing being done. I know I shouldn't be. Bars on the floor type shit. This is like holding the door open for an old person, for like literally anybody. This is bare minimum type shit. But in the political system in which we exist today, the good thing, the correct thing, the moral thing does not always get done. But this is a reminder that no matter how bleak things may look, no matter how fucked up it may seem, there are people who are willing to do what is correct in these circumstances.